Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over this very entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy, I believe he's probably in his mid to late 30s, happily married, he's a father and all that, good life. But his childhood was not so good. And he shares his story how ultimately our guy has the last laugh after he completely cut off and disowned his parents. His parents that were so crazy, so hardwired into that whole mindset that they basically, from the moment he was born, raised him to be that he was a bad guy because he was a male, and tried to indoctrinate him in all this effing mumbo jumbo and all that. His childhood was a nightmare. However, our guy here, after years of just a terrible childhood, finally had enough when he was a young man, and they tried to get him to accept an open relationship and raise some other guy's baby with a girlfriend he had. That's how far gone they were, and he was done. Well, fast forward in time, guys, after years of his story, what he went through, and guess what? Things aren't too well with his parents. And now our guy's having the last laugh. And I'll be going to go over here, guys, showing you that you cannot control what family you're born into, who are your parents, all that. What you can control is when you become an adult, getting away from them and completely distancing yourself permanently. Because it is such a shame when you have these good kids that are born in these absolute train wreck of a family. For whatever reason, whether it's substance abuse going on there or all sorts of things, or people that have criminal records, just the people that are far, far extreme in their politics, and they raise the kids in that way, and you're going to see this one here, and what they go through. But when you become an adult, you have the ability to escape. But don't get me wrong, guys, childhood stuff really messes you up in your adulthood, especially early adulthood, and it is quite the journey to get past that stuff. But all guys can do it, but you have to work very hard at it. And it goes to show you guys in his story, you can go through a nightmare of a childhood and get past it eventually, move on, and frankly, have the last laugh when those that do you wrong, you cut them out of your life. And you'll see here, and as you can see, this is going to be a longer story, guys, but definitely worth your time. And in the end, the guy has a question for the group, so there'll be audience participation at the very end. He says, "Dear SSM, call me John, fake name of course. My father-in-law recommended one of your videos back in 2023. I've been a subscriber and regular viewer of all three channels ever since." Father-in-law, huh? That's different. Well, given your story, I can see why. Well, shout out to the father-in-law. And I appreciate you watching me all this time, man. Like many of your viewers, I've been burned very badly by women in the past. In my case, it's not just a woman or women. I've been screwed over by people I shared blood with. Family is not a word I would use for them anymore. I've been meaning to write you for a while now, but I never really had the time or motivation to do so. I also didn't want to revisit my past. However, I'm in a bit of a dilemma right now and could use your perspective. I am originally from the liberal dystopia called New York. The people I share blood with all fall on the left-leaning side of the political spectrum. I call the woman whose womb I borrowed Deborah. I'll call Deborah's husband and BITCH Ben. Deborah and Ben's political views are deeply rooted in far-left ideology. Oh, they sound like a lot of fun. Picture the stereotypical blue-haired feminist and a skinny beta soy boy with a satchel and a man bun. That's exactly what Deborah and Ben look like. Oh boy, guys, you can see where this is going and how he was raised here. You poor guy. Obviously, I read this and it's bad. But our guy's going to have the last laugh. Well, Deborah spawned two clones of herself, one before me and one after me. I'll name them Natalie and Kate. My childhood was nothing short of a nightmare. As a child, I was constantly educated on the horrible things men had done to women throughout history, particularly straight white men. I was taught that men were inherently toxic and predatory. Because I was a boy, those traits are supposedly in my nature. Good God Almighty, you poor guy, growing up like that. Man, and I know how this is going to go. Harry Potter had a better situation with his a-hole aunt and uncle and cousin than you obviously had. And I know that's fiction, guys, but most of you seen Harry Potter, you know what I'm talking about here. I needed to, and he's being sarcastic here, I needed to educate myself so I wouldn't exhibit those toxic behaviors. They were trying to make it my life's goal to support all women and oppressed groups to make up for the oppression that my gender had caused. I'm not exaggerating in the least here. That was indeed my childhood. As soon as I was able to read, they gave me books about feminism and other left-wing propaganda. Deborah and Ben made sure that I read them. They were and still are social justice warriors. That's because people don't change. Leave your kids out of sex type of stuff and politics, for God's sakes. But people that are extreme, and I don't care what side of the political spectrum they are, doesn't matter to them. Every time there was a protest or parade relating to their causes, both of them would be there. Once we got a little older, they would bring me and Deborah's daughters to those rallies as well. Somehow both Ben and Deborah were employed. In fact, they were both doing great in their careers and are currently living the upper middle class life today. And how they did this, I don't know. Well, obviously they probably worked for companies that probably matched their views and worked amongst people that matched their views. Again, they sound like a hoot. To continue the story of my childhood trauma, I was treated like a second-class citizen by Deborah's daughters. In other words, your sisters. They bullied me and stole my things, my toys, my snacks on a regular basis. If I'm honest with myself, I know they are victims of Deborah and Ben as well. They received the same kind of education that I did and believed that as a guy, I was the root of all evil. You know who's the root of all evil? Your parents. Raising you like that based on their psychotic political beliefs, extreme beliefs, and with your sisters, letting them bully you and making you, you're just born into this world, and you're the reason for all the problems, and it's freaking ridiculous, crazy. They're scumbags. They shouldn't have been raising you. In their minds, I deserved everything they did to me. Deborah and Ben turned a blind eye to what they were doing. When I complained about Kate and Natalie stealing my stuff, they would lie, and Deborah and Ben would believe them. When I was able to prove my case, Deborah and Ben would brush it off. I was a boy, it doesn't matter. I used to stand up to Kate and Natalie's bullying, but every time I did, I got punished by the parents. How dare I raise my hands against their precious little girls? Again, I was a boy. I could never be the victim. Eventually, I gave up. I accepted the bullying from Kate and Natalie without fighting back. I'm not going to smack you because you couldn't win. There was no way you could win in this situation. And if you snapped, you'd probably be off in juvenile hall or military school, which actually would have been better for you than dealing with those people. Someone's childhood plays a major role in shaping who they become as an adult. My childhood taught me that I should accept abuse from women. After therapy, I learned that just because I accepted that bad treatment didn't mean I wasn't resenting it. I was simply bottling up that resentment until it eventually exploded. I was becoming emotionally unstable. You were surviving. You were surviving in a situation. You were a little kid. You had nowhere to go, and that was all you had, you know? And I guarantee they surrounded themselves with people that probably thought what they were doing was right or normal. For most of my life, I was a passive, non-confrontational person, but there were times that those bottled up emotions erupted and I completely lost control of myself. I was lucky because some of these incidents could have gotten me locked up. Right, exactly. You were surviving, you know? And I know how this story goes and you eventually escape, but damn, dude, these people are scum, and I love the way this ends. Ben and Deborah even tried to alter my, listen to this, sexuality. Oh, dude, give me an address. Give me an address. I want to go talk to these people. And I'll make sure somebody's recording when I do. I would get talks about how it was okay to like boys. Every time I got close to a close male friend, they would ask whether I liked him as more than a friend. Let me remind you, I was a kid. They wanted a GAY son so they could add another point to whatever sick game of pretentious morality they were playing. Dude, there are people like this. And let's just say, I know someone who, same crap. And when I say I know someone, I mean I have a relationship with that someone, but let's just say I know someone. Now let me make one thing clear. I believe people should be able to express whatever political beliefs they hold. I also believe that two consenting adults can do whatever they like in their own private lives. But politics and sexuality are not things that should be pushed onto a child. Freaking men, brother. I agree with you completely. What those people did to me was simply child abuse. It was. Absolutely. And damn, dude, it's amazing you are doing as well as you're doing today. The only thing that kept me sane throughout my childhood was my godmother, M. She's Deborah's cousin and my godmother, but to me, she's the one and only mother I know. Em is a couple of years older than Deborah. Due to health complications, she is infertile. She married a French guy and moved to France. Her husband passed away due to some unforeseen circumstances, and she moved back to the States around the time I was born. Because of her job, she lived close to Deborah and Ben's house. She was one of the few people on either side of their family who still interacted with them. Maybe because she couldn't have kids of her own, she treated me and Deborah's daughters like her own kids. I was especially close to her. Em was fluent in French because she had lived there for years. She told me when I was young I wanted to learn French from her and started calling her Em, and it's basically French for mom. Well, he calls her actually Mam, or M-A-M-A-N. M-A-M-A-N. That's how he spells it. I'm just going to call her M. Em was not supportive of Deborah's actions or those of her daughters. Well, thank God for that. Without her, I'm pretty sure my childhood would have been infinitely more miserable. She couldn't stop the abuse completely because, at the end of the day, she wasn't my legal guardian. Later in life, she told me she was afraid Deborah would cut her off from me if she pushed too hard. Deborah, your mom would have, guaranteed. She tried to bring me to her place whenever she could. Her home was a safe haven. I could escape from Deborah's family there. I had my own room at M's house and toys that I actually liked. Notice he said not just escape from his mom and dad, Deb and Ben, but also the family. So the whole family's effed up. Ben and Deborah used to vet every single toy I owned and everything I watched on television. They didn't want me consuming anything that might be toxic. Unfortunately for them, my favorite thing as a child was guns. I loved and still love them for reasons I cannot tell you. Dude, I get it. Deborah and Ben weren't going to buy me anything like that because it was going to cause violent behavior, or whatever nonsense they used to say. Em would buy me toys and violent ones that I wanted. I still have my Nerf sets in pristine condition to this day, and I want to pass them on to my kids when they're ready. Well, the funny thing is you have daughters. After graduating from high school, I moved out of that hell. One thing I wanted to do for so long was own a real gun. I needed to be 21 to do that at the time, so I had to put it on hold for a while. In the meantime, I decided to go to a shooting range, and my first real firearm was a .22. Well, that was mine too. It's a pretty useless rifle, but for the first time I shot it, and it felt incredible. I started going to the range a couple times a month. That's always a good time, man. Fortunately, in my house, it wasn't a problem. There I met a group of guys. A few of them attended my college. I wasn't exactly a social butterfly then, and my confidence had been completely destroyed growing up in that toxic dump. Dude, I can totally understand. But they were easy to talk to, and I gradually became part of the group. They all trained at an MMA gym and asked me to join them. I wasn't sure at first, but after checking it out, I decided to give MMA a shot. I ended up really enjoying it. That's awesome, man. Great workout, great to socialize and meet good people, and you learn skills and get in great shape. So you're totally going against your upbringing here. MMA and going to the shooting range. But you got a lot of anger and things built up inside you got to let out. And the problem was I had issues. I mentioned earlier that I was an emotionally unstable ticking time bomb. And that started showing during sparring sessions. I lost control of myself and took a couple of friendly spars way too far. It wasn't because of bruised ego, I generally lost control. I might be exaggerating here, but I felt like I was in a state of psychosis. Dude, I've seen some people snap in sparring sessions. It ain't pretty. And it's like, whoa, calm down, bro. We're just practicing here. People like literally picture themselves being attacked and shit comes back, childhood shit. Bad events, who knows? I remember one day an older guy pulled me aside and told me he didn't know what demons I was fighting, but I should see a shrink. I ignored him because at that point I didn't realize my behavior was rooted in childhood trauma. This happened a few more times. I almost got kicked out of the gym, but one of the guys I met at the shooting range managed to smooth things over. Let us call him Justin. Justin became my best friend during my college years. Eventually, I got control over myself, and after a while, I was generally enjoying MMA. I also started lifting weights on the side. I was getting into shape and slowly rebuilding up the confidence that had been shattered growing up. Man, you're becoming everything that is a nightmare to your mom and dad, Deborah and Ben. You're physically getting in good shape lifting weights. You're becoming physically toxic. You're going to the shooting range. Oh, toxic. Learning to fight. Again, toxic. Ha ha ha. Good for you, man. It was short-lived, though. I was still visiting Deborah's place a couple times a year. Smack! Why? That's the smack you're getting free. Why would you have anything to do with these motherfuckers after you became a legal adult? That I don't understand. But you were screwed up, and maybe on some level you were conditioned to think this is all there is. I don't know. But I know what happens. During one visit, one of Deborah's old college friends came by. She brought her daughter with her. Let's just call her Jessica. Well, that's a perfect name to describe this girl. Jessica is a spitting image of Deborah. She had dyed pink hair, a septum nose ring, and tattoos all over her body. Therefore, naturally, you had to fall in love with her, huh? Deborah introduced me to Jessica and her mom. Jessica was attending the same college as me, but I'd never seen her before. It was pretty obvious that Deborah and Jessica's mom were trying to play matchmaker. Yeah, with a freaking pink-haired, no septum tattoos all over the place, but obviously, and he's going to say she was a hottie. Just like your mom. A shrink could have a field day with this. It was pretty obvious, blah, 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 blah. I took Jessica out to eat that day. Smack! Why would you ever get involved with someone that your mom would fix you up with, let alone, well, because that's what you're used to. Jessica, I also found out she was majoring in, wait for it, gender studies. Another glaring red flag. After our date, we exchanged phone numbers. He says, I know, smack. Yeah, smack. What the hell's the matter with you? I should have run for the hills, but Jessica was hot, and she was the first girl ever paid attention to me. Dude, a girl like that, she's going to be just like your mom and boss you around. And guaranteed, you were that guy that she could parade around like the nice guy, who she's going to get serious with. But what do you think she's like behind the scenes? What do you think the type of guy she's like before you? You think she's a sweet and innocent, pure girl? Fat freaking chance. And let's see if I'm right. Because of my childhood experience with Deborah's family, I subconsciously tried to stay away from girls when I was a teenager. Well, who can blame you? Every time a female friend got a little too close, I distanced myself from her. Plus, I'm 5'9" on a good day and a very average-looking dude. In short, I was a virgin and Jessica was hot. Ain't no way Jessica was a virgin. Well, things with Jessica moved pretty quickly, and we were exclusive within a couple of weeks. Smack! Now you just gave her all the power. Got involved with a girl like that? My life started going downhill again after that. That's on you, dude. I mean, I know you're young and you're messed up and all that, but really? You got together with a girl, your mom, your psycho mom? Like I said, Jessica was just like Deborah. She was a hardcore feminist, controlling, and very abusive. I know, dude. He was conditioned for this. I know we're all smacking him and doing face palms, but he was conditioned for this. And he also, I guarantee you, deep down didn't think he was worth shit. She didn't like that I went to the shooting range and trained in MMA. Shocker. She said she couldn't date somebody who engaged in violent activities like that. I'd be like, so? All right, hit the road, honey. Smack her on the ass. That'd probably turn her on once she stopped her psychotic rants about the feminism. She threatened to break up with me if I didn't stop. I would have laughed in her face. Like the pussy I was, I told her I'd stop. Smack, smack, smack. There you go. You think that made her respect you more or respect you less? Take a wild guess. Well, I didn't. I was still going to the shooting range and MMA gym, but I cut back a little bit to try to hide it from her. In public, going out with her was nothing less than a humiliation ritual. We both hated each other's friend groups. Her friends were feminists, like her, plus Jessica was very promiscuous. Shocker, you're going out with a town bicycle. Imagine that. She informed me that she used to sleep with a couple guys in her group. I wasn't happy about that, but I was shamed and got called insecure for it. Smack for letting her shame you and get insecure about it. Dude, really? I know you know this now, and you got your shit together, but I'm not going to let this go. Remember, we're all here to learn something, what not to do a lot of the time. Eventually, I stopped objecting to her hanging out with them because I convinced myself these guys were in the past, and she was with me now. Nope. Whenever we hung out with her friends, she got wasted. She'd either start berating me or start flirting with some of the guys in the group. Sometimes I had to physically drag her out of there while she wailed like a child. Whenever we had an argument, she would disappear for days without any communication. Punishing you with the silent treatment, huh? She is also very secretive about her phone. Those were only a few qualities of that wonderful girl I know, Smack. Yeah, dude. My arm is sore at this point, dude, but yes, I'm thinking it. And we're all thinking it. Your family seriously messed you up, man. But there's a point where the childhood shit, you can only go so far in blaming that, and as an adult, you gotta do what you can to get past that. You were doing so well at first. I'm not being able to take it anymore. I tried to break up with her multiple times. Tried? Either do or do not. There is no try. There is no better example than that. Yoda would be smacking your ass right now. But every time I tried, it followed the same sequence of events. She'd come begging. If that didn't work, she would get her friends, Deborah, Ben, and their daughters involved. Again, tell them to fuck off. They would tell me I was ruining a good relationship and pressure me to stay. Jessica would come over and F my brains out, and then I'd take her back. That's the real reasons you took her back. Neither Em nor my friend group liked her at all, and they could see how she was treating me. Jessica hated them in return. She particularly disliked Justin and another friend, Emma, for different reasons. Enter Emma. We have Em and Emma. Whenever Jessica treated me like crap in public, Justin would confront her. They clashed quite a bit. It got to the point where Justin called Jessica a toxic bitch to her face. Good for him. That probably turned her on. He even asked me why I was tolerating this shit instead of breaking up with her. There's a good question. Back then, I didn't have an answer to that to myself. As I said before, I simply had gotten used to being treated like crap by women. See your condition. You were fucking programmed. Trying to rewire from childhood shit is very difficult. But you got to do it, guys. Plus, I had low self-esteem and didn't think I could get anybody else. Being alone is better than dealing with that, dude. Come on here. You can always get laid with a hooker. God's sakes. I'm sure your mom, Deborah, would love the idea of that of hookers, and for obvious reasons I don't need to explain. After that day Justin called Jessica a BIT, she demanded that I completely cut ties with him. She'd asked me to cut him off before, but I never gave in. This time she wasn't letting it go. She got Deborah and the rest of her family involved again. Deborah asked how I could allow someone to talk to Jessica like that, and said if I didn't cut Justin off, they would disown me. Okay. Please disown me, Mom and Dad. That'd be the greatest goddamn motherfucking gift you could ever give me. What does he do? Well, I should have been glad to hear that, but back then I was scared and did what they told me to do. Smack! There, my shoulders recuperated, I'm back to smacking him. I can still remember how disappointed and angry Justin looked when I talked to him. I don't blame him at all. Justin should have whooped your ass. Of all the stupid things I've done in my life, this is the thing I regret the most because it was the last time I ever talked to Justin. Now about Emma. She was an exchange student from Montana. I met her at the same MMA gym. We were both majoring in CSE, and when we met, I was a senior and she was a sophomore. We had a lot in common interests, and became friends. Jessica did not like Emma at all. Yeah, because she was competition. She used to frequently accuse me of cheating on her with Emma. Yeah, because Jessica's a big cheater. Emma was a bit tomboyish, but she was and still is extremely attractive. If she's going to MMA gyms, she absolutely is tomboyish. But you can have good-looking tomboys. But there's a fine line between the good-looking tomboy girl and then they turn into a bunch of fucking feminists. Because of that, she was really popular both at the gym and at our school. Not gonna lie, I checked Emma out like every other straight guy in the gym. But I never had any thoughts beyond that. Jessica, however, was somehow convinced I was cheating on her with Emma. Yeah, projection. I don't know whether it was because she was jealous, because of Emma's looks, or she was just projecting what she was doing to me. Both. Mostly, it was a combination of both. Eventually, she started getting physical with me because of this. Like I mentioned before, I was an emotional ticking time bomb and reacted very badly to physical violence. I remember one day, during an argument about Emma, Jessica threw a coffee mug at me, and I dodged it, but I completely lost it. How much suffering do you have to endure to get away from these fucking people? But I know your tactic you used as a child was to survive, was just putting up with shit. You're not a child anymore. You're not a minor. You're a fucking adult. If you're a senior, like 21, 22. I got a buddy who, he told me this months ago. He didn't tell me for a while, but he's divorced now. Happily divorced, a bachelor. And the final straw, which led to the divorce of him and his wife of like a number of years, is they were, I guess, traveling. They were in a hotel, and she lost it. And she picked up an iron. She was ironing a shirt or a dress or something, and just wailed the freaking iron at him. Whoosh. Yeah. Where the hell was I? She threw a coffee mug at me, and I lost it. I grabbed her by the neck and slammed her against the wall. Wow, there you go. And I told her never do that again. I know how stupid that was, but fortunately for me, she didn't call the cops. The arguments continued. I decided to distance myself from Emma. There you go. Now you're ditching somebody else. Emma, who treats you well, versus this harpy who's throwing coffee mugs at you. What do you have to? Do you have to wake up in the middle of the night to see her with a knife in her hand and your Johnson on the freaking on the side table by the bed to make you get away from her? Then my breaking point finally came. Praise Jesus. I was visiting Deborah's house during summer break. I was at Emma's place when Deborah called and asked me to come back to the house because they had something very important to discuss. While I was driving back, I got a call from a friend, and he was crying. He told me that Justin had passed away. Whoa, shit. Justin had an addiction problem. He OD'd on crystal meth. I mean, I'm sorry your buddy died, but I'm not going to sugarcoat when I say, what the fuck do you expect to happen if you're doing that kind of shit, you know? By the time his roommate found him and called for help, he was already dead. When I heard the news, I had a breakdown. I pulled my car to the side of the highway and cried my lungs out for a solid half hour. I hope he's in a much better place now. I hope so too. And I know the real reason you're crying because you cut him off, and he was a loyal friend to you, even though he was stupid being on the drugs. I pulled myself together and went to Deborah's place. The moment I walked to the door, Deborah blew up at me for being late. Like, you picked the wrong day, bitch. I saw Jessica and her mom there as well. I wasn't in the mood to talk about anything, but Deborah wasn't having it, so I sat down. Deborah started by saying that Jessica was pregnant. Yours? It caught me off guard because we used protection, and Jessica had always said she didn't want kids. But I wasn't unhappy about it. Then Deborah informed me that the child was likely not biologically mine. Shocker. Meanwhile, Jessica's giving you a hard time for being friends with Emma. I asked her what she meant by that. Then I looked at Jessica and asked if she'd been cheating on me. Deborah got angry at me for framing it that way, or whatever nonsense she was trying to argue. The rest of the conversation is a blur now because of the emotional roller coaster I was on. But from what I can recall, Deborah gave me a whole speech about women's bodily autonomy or some shit like that. Of course, in her mind, and all these psycho nutjob feminist mind, a woman's allowed to sleep with other guys and have open relationships because no man can tell her what to do. And now, guess what? She wants you to take care of that kid. She told me that a woman has the right to reproduce with whomever she decides. She said I shouldn't be upset because Jessica wasn't planning on leaving me. Oh, wonderful. I shouldn't care about biological connections. I should be happy to become a father and raise the child as if it were my own. Oh, dude. You got one fucked up family. Then she launched into another speech about ethical non-monogamy. Monogamy was outdated and people should be allowed to sleep with whomever they wanted without restrictions. Expecting a woman to be sexually committed to one man was, wait for it, supposedly restricting her body autonomy and was therefore toxic and misogynistic. Oh, okay. Sure. Here's a question for your psycho mother. Does that mean that guys are allowed to go out and have fun, or does it mean just women? She is batshit crazy, man. But you know what? You just had to keep enduring all this shit, all this craziness, all this pain till you finally broke free. It's amazing what people will endure till they finally had enough. To summarize everything, she had just informed me that my girl was carrying another man's child. Not only that, she wanted me to raise Jessica as a fair child and be perfectly okay with her effing other dudes on the side. That's exactly what she wanted. Even remembering that day makes my blood boil. I asked what would happen if I refused. Jessica said she would break up with me if that happened. Again, great. I don't know why she thought she was threatening me with such sweet words. Because you were the dumbass that put up with her shit all these years. That's why. I know there's more face palms all over the world right now. That's why, because you, all the shit she did to you, and said to you, and did to you, and all that, and everything you did to make her happy, and stick around, all the abuse you took, and you would never leave, that's why. Then Deborah and Ben started their disownment thread again. Deborah told me she wasn't going to accept a backward, closed-minded prude of a son. At that point, I was wondering whether this whole thing was some elaborate joke. But their expressions made it clear they were serious. They were a bunch of lunatics. With them cornering me like that, combined with the death of a close friend I had, I finally snapped. About freaking time, man. I looked at Deborah, Mom, and called her by her first name. Then I told her to go F herself. She tried to say something, but I shouted at her to shut the F up. I told that from that moment forward, I was cutting ties to everybody in that room. Thank God. It's about time, dude. You should have done that on your 18th birthday. I pointed at Jessica and told them they were out of their minds for expecting me to raise a SLUT's bastard child and be okay with that open relationship crap. I said a lot of things that I won't repeat here. Dude, we would love to hear it. At one point, Ben tried to act like a man, but I got right in his face and told him to take a damn swing. I still remember the terrified look on his face. Mr. Man Bun. You've been training at MMA for years. Didn't mean you were some badass fighter, but you knew enough skills, certainly to take down a soy boy father of yours. I still remember the terrified look on his face. There was only one man in that room, and it wasn't Ben. You mean it was Deborah, your mom? I really hope I don't have any biological connection with that little bitch. Also, to be honest, part of me is glad he didn't do anything. As much as I wanted to whoop his raggedy soy boy ass, I knew that if he had made a move back then, I would have lost what little sanity I had, and given how unstable I was at the time, I could very well be rotting in prison for doing that today. Yeah, dude, if he even shoved you, poked at you in your chest, you probably would have lost it. And nobody could blame you, and that guy would deserve it. A lot of it. And you could, yes, very well have done time. And that ain't worth it. But don't worry, life has a funny way of punishing people. Well, I got out of there and drove 3 straight hours back to my apartment. I was restless and needed somewhere to dump all the anger and sadness. I went to my MMA gym and started bare-knuckling the heavy bag. Yeah, and you probably had no meat on your knuckles after a while. People were giving me strange looks, but I didn't care. I don't know how long I was doing it, but eventually I got dizzy and lost my balance. A guy nearby caught me before I fell and helped me sit down. As I was catching my breath, I realized everybody was staring at me, and Emma was there too. Seeing her was a surprise, as I wasn't expecting her but to be there at the time. In my rush, I'd forgotten to bring a water bottle, and Emma walked over and handed me hers. I looked at her for a second, and she asked, "What, scared of cooties?" I laughed and chugged the bottle. And when she got the first aid kit, I realized I was bleeding all over the place. After treating my wounds, she invited me over to her place for dinner. Emma's cool, man. Once we got there, she asked whether I was going to talk about what had happened. I told her about Justin. Justin left the gym a few months earlier at that point. Emma had met him once at some of the gatherings, but they were never close. I remember him asking for her number once, but she rejected him. Things were a little awkward between them back after that. I don't know why, but I also told her everything about my so-called family and Jessica. You're going to smack me for this, SSM, but I ended up crying a little in front of her. At that time, dude, she was like one of the bros at the MMA gym. And given what you've been through, I'll cut you a little slack. I'm going to smack you for putting up with that family after you're 18 years old and being involved with Jessica. That you get smacks for. She comforted me and told me she was heading back to Montana tomorrow for summer break. She asked if I wanted to tag along because I looked like I could use a change of scene. I'd be like, hell yeah. I agreed. Emma went into the kitchen after that, and surprisingly, she could really cook. She didn't seem like that type at first. I was too excited to drive back to my place, so I crashed on. Too exhausted to drive back to my place, so I crashed on her couch. And he says, no, nothing happened. The next day, I left with Emma. That summer at her dad's farm was one of the things that pulled me out of that dark place and pushed me to finally get help. That's great, man. That is great. She is your angel come down from heaven at the MMA gym. This email is already getting way too long, and I won't bore you with all the drama involving Jessica and the rest of those wackos that followed afterward. Oh, dude, we love to hear that type of stuff, especially when you're acting like a man. I think I've already given enough context for you to understand the situation, so I'll get straight to the point. Fast forward to today, I'm happily married and have 2 wonderful daughters who are the lights of my life. Back in March, Deborah had a stroke. Ha ha ha. Well, hang on. Congratulations on your marriage to Emma. Gee, nobody saw that coming. That's great. And congratulations on your daughters. And obviously you're not raising them to be a bunch of feminine nutsies. But back to your mom, Deborah. She had a stroke. Ha ha ha. She's out of danger now, but her health is not good. She's been trying to contact me for years, especially after my oldest was born. Now she's using M to meet my daughters. Deborah's birthday is this Saturday. She wants me to bring my daughters to see her that day. Not a chance in hell. There ain't no way you're introducing your daughters to her. After everything she did to you and get how psycho she is. Em and Emma, who's not my wife, are both saying that despite everything that happened, she's still my mother, and given her health condition, I should at least grant her this one wish. Maybe I'm a cruel bastard, but fuck her health. Amen to that, man. I hope she's dying a painful death. And I'm sure all you guys, and your freaking dad. What I'm conflicted about is whether I should let my daughters meet their grandmother just this once. My concern is that they'll use this opportunity to try and slither back into my life and influence my daughters. They will. I will not allow that at all. I'm not sure whether you'll use this email for video or not. If you do, I'm hoping that my life experiences might help wise up some guys out there who are facing similar circumstances. If you don't, I can still use a neutral third-party perspective in this situation. Thank you for what you're doing for the brothers out there. Stay safe, John. John, you've had one hell of a life, man, and I'm sorry all the shit that happened as a kid. It is not your fault. That horrible family you're in. God, I wish social services would have saw something messed up and got you out of there, but they didn't. Because they knew you had just enough to skate on by any attention. But what you do as a man is on yourself. I don't know how you didn't freaking cut all them off at 18 years and 1 day old. Probably didn't have any money, didn't know where to go, but you're probably so worn down by all that you just didn't know any better. And that really does explain why you put up with them and Jessica so long. But God Almighty. But here you are, you got your life together, you're in a happy marriage with Emma and your 2 daughters, and that is awesome. And clearly you got your shit together, great. No, you should not have anything to do with your mom and soy boy Ben at all, regardless of them getting old and dying. And no, in my opinion, you should not introduce your daughters to their grandmother. Why? Because they're freaking psychos. People don't change, and they haven't changed either. You want to expose your daughters and what they did to your sisters and how your sisters treated you and how they treated you as a kid and young adult and then adult around them? No way. And you can respectfully tell your godmother, M, no. Thank you for everything you've done for me, and she was great to you. Be respectful, but no, I will not introduce them and have anything to do with those people. And your wife, again, I'm assuming Emma never actually met them. No way. End of story. Now, obviously they're feeling compassion and all that. Regardless, no. They don't deserve to see the grandchildren, and you don't need to expose your grandchildren to those awful people. No friggin' way. Okay? And is it a possibility that down the road your daughters might one day say, I never got to know my grandparents because of you? Maybe. But I'd rather have them be mad at me and not exposed to those a-holes after everything they did to you. And this isn't just about revenge. You're allowed to have revenge on your parents. I got no problem with that. Okay? Seriously. But this is about protecting your daughters and the harm they can do and trying to slither back into your life. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to use your compassion. They're trying to use compassion to get you to cave and let them back in your life. No freaking way. And I'm assuming you have nothing to do with your sisters either. Yes, they conditioned your sisters to be that way too, obviously, but I would still have nothing to do with them. That's how your family, anybody associated with them should be dead to you, and obviously is. So, bro, you asked for my opinion, and I'm sure that 99.999997% of all the guys watching this are going to say, no way. Small price to pay to have your daughters annoyed with you later in life, to keep them away from these harpies. And yes, your dad's a harpy, and I gotta wonder if you're actually his child, you know. But anyhow, bro, great story. I mean, it was a hard one to listen to, but it was not your fault what you went through. The only time I wanted to smack you was when you were a legal adult and being with Jessica and all. But they wanted you to actually accept her being in an open relationship and raise another kid's child. But these people are lunatics, and I'm glad you finally cut ties with them. End of story. And you're having the last laugh by simply being successful, having a good life and good marriage. But do not at all, no matter what, let your godmother or your wife try to convince you that out of them feeling bad. No freaking way. And I'd make it abundantly clear to them, to your wife and your godmother, that there better not be any orchestrating things behind the scenes or taking the daughters without my permission to see them. Otherwise, I'll be cutting you off too. And you better fucking mean it. Because like I said, guys, you got the most powerful thing is to say that basically you cross a certain line of boundary and you'll walk no matter what. And I know you know this by watching these videos in this channel. So, bro, that's a hell of a story. You're better, in a good place now. Good for you. Congratulations on your family. And I hope Deborah suffers because she's a piece of garbage. And your dad. And that's my wonderful, inspiring thing for Friday. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let this guy know what you think. He wants to know, so let him know. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.